Hi. That's all I got. Keep walking to see a lot. Ciao.
Hello, hello. And I got the video. Perfect.
Okay, got it. So, Pam, this is Harvey. She runs UCSF nursing for behavioral health.
Oh, very cool.
She runs a full service. Okay, nursing is one part of it. Okay, so all the behavioral health services at UCSF.
Wow.
In behavioral health. Not the whole. She's going to run the whole thing pretty soon.
Yeah. I'll give it a week and then it'll be the full.
It'll be the whole month.
Yeah.
Then I'll retire with you. So I'm made it.
Yeah.
Cheers! Cheers! So tell me what you're excited about. Yeah.
Sean, anyone that starts moving?
right there, and I'll pick it up with you.
Sure, you got it.
We'll get the whole crowd. Front row. Okay, ready? Wow.
Maybe I'll sneak a chair right there by you. Please do. Because then I want to be in the front. It's not a chair for me. Well, I can't get there. I'll do it. Take the same path as you. Might be easiest to go like. Wait.
Oh, okay.
Good evening. Thank you so much for coming this evening. So tonight, we have a lot to celebrate tonight. So tonight we are here to celebrate, of course, our beloved Dr. Sylvia Earle. And Ocean-A Global Odyssey. So she's going to be coming up here and talking a little bit later about that. But we also have a few other things that we could be talking about and celebrating tonight. So one is the 25th anniversary of the Bay Aquarium is this year. And who knows, what is the gift for the 25th anniversary? Is that diamonds? What is it? No, it's silver. So George, we could be expecting some silver. Also, we are celebrating another thing. We're celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Bay Institute. And on that note, I'd like to invite this handsome gentleman up here, Steve. Here, Steve Martinger, is that correct? Founder and former chairman of the board. So I'm going to turn this over. I'm your MC for tonight, and I'll be talking to you later.
Thank you. It's so great to see such a wonderful crowd of people without masks on and all together to celebrate our climate and Sylvia Earle's dedication to preserving it and to preserving our oceans. I'm Steve Martinger. I'm not the founder of the Bay Institute, but I've been on the board for many years. And on behalf of the board of directors, I just want to welcome all of you and tell you that together we are making a difference. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being supportive, please go on our website and contribute what you can. George has been an amazing leader and a visionary, and in the coming years you'll be seeing some amazing things from George. So keep your eyes on our website for news about that. I will not take any more of your time. I just want to tell you how excited we are to be hosting this and to be seeing all of you tonight. Hope you enjoy.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we have a few speakers tonight, and this one, I'm going to ask you to stand at attention, or actually, no. You're going to have to sit at attention, because this is a highly decorated, amazing person who is here to talk to you about something that's going on with the climate and the ocean. Of course, this is all about that. But let me tell you about Lieutenant Colonel Arnold. So his military awards and decorations include the Combat Action, Airborne, Air Assault Badges, the Ranger and Sapper Tabs, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, the Iraqi Companion Medal, the Army Achievements and Commendation Medals. Can I go on? Because there's lots more. The Meritorious Service Medal and the Bronze Star Medal. He also has been awarded the Bronze Order of the DeFlory Medal. But he's not going to talk about any of that tonight. Can I welcome you up here? Okay. So what are we talking about tonight?
Well, obviously we're here to celebrate a tremendous work that's going out for everyone to get to learn from all of Dr. Earle's work. Good evening, friends of the Aquarium in the Bay Model Visitor Center, Dr. Earle. It gives me a great pleasure welcoming you to the Bay Model here tonight. This was built in 1957. It's the single largest indoor hydraulic working model in the United States. To me, it's an example of something that I'll presume that we, being the Corps of Engineers, share with you, and that's and our special guest tonight, which is a commitment to using science to solve the problems of our world and our environment. And that's what the Corps of Engineers has done with this facility in the past. Use it to inform and make evidence-based decisions for the development of the San Francisco Bay. And that's that's obviously something that's tremendously important as we move forward. You're here tonight because of a partnership that I'm very grateful for. The Bay Model Alliance with the Smithsonian affiliated Aquarium in the Bay has not only strengthened the community outreach between the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which we're a part of here, and this is the Army Corps of Engineers facility, but the millions of visitors engaged with both of our institutions. It also brings an awareness to current issues impacting the San Francisco Bay and the world, especially the effects of climate change, sea level rise, and our efforts to protect against those effects. Today we're gathered here at our visitor center to honor Dr. Sylvia Earle and celebrate the release of her newest National Geographic book, Ocean. Dr. Earle's obviously been featured in over 400 documentaries, twice on the cover of Time magazine. The former chief scientist at NOAA, and now at 85, still diving into the depths of the ocean. I remarked to others, man, you make me want to set my alarm clock a little earlier every morning, just thinking about you. Has worked with ocean pioneers, Jacques Cousteau, David Cameron, Sir Richard Branson, just to name a few. So I'm grateful to Mr. George Jacob, President and CEO of the Bay Aquarium, and his wonderful staff for taking the lead in organizing this great event for everyone tonight. We really look forward to getting another great opportunity to learn, and really grateful for everybody coming tonight and for the opportunity to learn. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. What an accomplished man. Okay, so before I bring up our next speaker, I just wanted to give out a shout out to the band tonight. So Freddie Clark formed this band 20 years ago called Wobbly World, and thank you, George, for loving his effort because he's so excited to play at all of your events. So Freddie, why don't you tell us quickly about this incredible band that you have?
Well, quickly, I took the name Wobbly World from Al Gore's book, Earth in the Balance, when I read about how the Earth wobbles on its axis, and they determined change from that angle. And I thought it would be a good way to describe the band, the world, and me, the Wobbly World. So I thought that bringing together musicians and singers from different countries and would also represent the Wobbly World. So I have a lot of infighting, and it's good. We work it out. And we're from Palestine, Morocco, Cuba, Lebanon, Ivory Coast, Palestine, Vietnam, and they're not all here though. But they, we play together. We love playing for George and Sylvia. My God, what an honor! So thank you so much.
A little bit later. So Freddie considers this Wobbly World band with all these different musicians from all over the country the New America band. Anyway, no further, I'd like to bring up Mr. George Jacobs. The best, always the best dressed, fashion forward, constantly looking out for the planet, us, everybody else. The president and CEO of the Bay Aquarium and the Aquarium of the Bay, our favorite, George Jacobs.
Just have a short video for you, and then let's say a few words. Go.
The Bay Aquarium is this transformational idea to save the Bay. It's radical, it's generational, and by the way, I went to school in Berkeley. That's my Bay.
Climate change is the greatest existential threat we face.
Climate inaction could be catastrophic. Our children deserve a cleaner planet and a brighter future.
Ocean health directly impacts human health.
Without oceans and forests, we lose the lungs of life itself.
The time to act is now.
Let's turn the tide.
Let's collectively resolve to take climate action.
Let's join hands in making the Bay Aquarium a reality.
Let's look forward to a better tomorrow.
Let's go save the Bay and the rest of the world too while we're at it.
Here is the sun.
With every breath you take, every drop of water you drink, you're connected to the ocean. Even if you've never seen the ocean or touched the ocean touches you.
Beautiful, beautiful ocean. Beautiful, beautiful sea. The waves are like dancers in motion, swaying along the breeze. Life in your moves to rhythm, and at the show we hear the beat. I pick up the we have sons and daughters. In us we all begin. The ground that we walk on grows harder, but we can't break down the dream. Protect our life like we should. The ones that we love and hold. Extend that love to the earth. Let no life be left alone.
Education is potential set in motion. It doesn't just make us smarter, it develops our empathy.
Sing together, it's now or never, now or never. And we know it's not too late for us to be ashamed.
An environmental edifice unlike any other, both in terms of its physical footprint and its digital outreach. Let's make this vision a reality, taking climate conversations from awareness to action.
We were actually quite surprised that 8 Grammy winners came together and recorded the song and dedicated to the Climate Museum that they're planning in San Francisco. Dr. Sylvia Earle has been an integral part of this process. One of the first people I met 6 years ago, Sylvia, and I had mentioned that she should be part of this process, and she said, "Why not? Let's do it." And we have had an uphill journey, but we've had a few breaks with COVID, and now I think we are back in saddle, and we are on the way to make improvements in the coming months and coming years. I just wanted to take a moment to mention that every one of us who's here tonight has been touched by Sylvia's work in some shape or form. I have, and it has changed me irreversibly in my understanding of climate, ocean, and all the related issues that form this beautiful planet that we need to sustain and preserve for times to come for future generations. So I would like to welcome her on stage with one announcement that I want to share with her. So please. I just wanted to make an announcement that today we have a proclamation that honors Sylvia Earle and Sylvia. This is a proclamation announcing a C scholarship, the Sylvia Earle Academic Scholarship, for an undergrad or a grad level student who wants to pursue his or her dreams in marine biology, protecting the planet, climate change, and ocean conservation. The scholarship has a value for an undergrad student for $32,000. We are accepting applications on our website, hr@bayaquarium.org, as of today. And the scholarships will be awarded on World Ocean Day on June 8th, 2022. So please join me in raising your glasses for toast to Sylvia Earle. Cheers.
Thank you, George Jacobs, and all of you. Can I apply? What a wonderful gift to someone who aspires to get out there and down there and to be given a real boost. That's an enduring legacy. Thank you. And really honored that my name is attached to it. But I really look forward to meeting whoever emerges as your first scholar. What a great concept. Thank you. And thank you for coming here to celebrate the ocean. That's what the book, Ocean-A Global Odyssey, really is about. It's meant to tell the story of the ocean and to share the view, not just my view, and the ages that I have spent exploring and getting to know the creatures in the ocean up close and personal, but it features so many others who have spent their respective lifetimes getting to know some aspect of the ocean very well. And this is an opportunity to hear their thoughts, their ideas. And I hope basically what the book will inspire is for people to want to go out and see for themselves, to understand that probably the greatest discovery out of all the many things that we have learned up to date. We've learned more since I began splashing around in the ocean in the 1950s than during all preceding history. But the biggest discovery so far is the magnitude of what we don't know. That we once thought, perhaps, maybe people still think, some, that all the great explorations have been accomplished, all the big discoveries on this planet have been made. We have to go high in the sky to the stars to be able to find new things. No, right here, right, in the bay and in the ocean beyond. We've only seen a tiny fraction of the ocean itself. Maybe 5% has been witnessed by one of us. We primates, we're just beginning to gain access, meaningful access to the ocean. Only about 15% has been mapped, and that's just the bottom. We know quite a lot about the top, but it's beneath the top and the bottom. You know, the juicy part of the ocean, the wet part. That's the ocean. And I love what the aquarium has been doing to introduce people who otherwise would not see the creatures who live there on their own terms. And now the ecotarium that brings it all together. We're so fortunate to be witnessing this continuing greatest time of exploration. We are so lucky to be 21st century human beings. Really, despite all the misery, the woe that is out there in the world today, plenty of reason to feel a sense of helplessness and despair. But when you think about it, when would you choose to be alive? We didn't know that what we now understand about the planet. We could go back 100 years or 1,000 years, or people around, of course. People much as the people who are on Earth today 10,000, 20,000 years ago. But they did not, and they could not know what the 10-year-olds of today, and what all the rest of us have access to as well. Where's my little clicker? Is it here? Yeah. This is so cool. This matters. I'll come over here so I can see what I'm talking about. Yeah. Imagine, everyone here has seen some variation on the theme of this picture. The guy who took it, William Anders, says he likes this picture too, but his favorite picture that he took during the Apollo 8 expedition in 1968 is this one, the blue face of the ocean. It's that little bit of water that is right outside of here. You know, we're connected to this massive blue part of the planet, the Pacific Ocean, but really it in turn connects to all the others. There's just one ocean. We talk about however many, 5 or 7 oceans, but it's really one ocean, one world, because it all, of course, ties together. And only now, 21st century human beings, you, are aware of phenomena that make our existence possible. We didn't know the connections between the atmosphere and the ocean. Did not even know what air was until a couple hundred years ago, but it's not long in terms of human history. Imagine being a kid 500 years ago and not knowing what air is, or what water actually is composed of. Well, it's basically 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, but it's a lot more than that. You know that when you go to the ocean, it's not just salt plus water. The ocean is alive. And it's only really on our watch, your watch, that we've begun to appreciate how it is that Earth, this blue miracle in a universe that's not very friendly. It's beautiful, but it's not very hospitable for the likes of us. So, if you choose to come around in your wish to be somewhere other than 21st century human being, think 100 years in the future. I would love to come back and see what it's like, but if we don't do what needs to be done now to secure an enduring place for ourselves within the living planet, coming back in 100 years would be pretty sad. This is the best time we've ever had, the best chance, armed with knowledge, to be able to really make peace with the rest of the natural world. We've been waging war on life, the rest of life on Earth, for probably as long as humans have been around, consuming the trees, consuming the wildlife on the land, consuming birds, and now consuming squid, and octopus, and fish, and whatever else is out there. Too bad it tastes so good, because if they didn't, maybe we wouldn't be so inclined to turn them into products. But the connection between the atmosphere and the ocean seems pretty logical when you think about it. There would be no atmosphere, there would be no climate if we did not have the ocean, the living ocean, filled with creatures that generate most of the oxygen that's been accumulating in the atmosphere since photosynthesis came along quite a long time ago. And now we know that I might know how to operate this little device. Get my wits about me. There we go. I can drive submarines. Photosynthesis. Glory be. Thank you, mangroves. Thank you, redwood trees. Thank you, all of the glorious forests, all the 250,000 or so kinds of flowering plants, and pine trees, and mosses, and all the other things on the land, but especially thank you for those organisms that make their home in the ocean. They arrived on Earth long before there were flowers and trees and ferns and things, have done and still do the heavy lifting in terms of capturing carbon, generating oxygen. Well, that would be good enough, except now we know, following the carbon, that this is what has shaped Earth to be habitable, a climate that is suitable for us. The destruction of the forests, and now the destruction of the plankton, the destruction of kelp forests, seagrass meadows, and all of the other photosynthesizers on the planet is really costing us dearly. But it doesn't stop there. What the photosynthetic organisms generate in terms of food is consumed, by us and all other animals. We don't photosynthesize, darn it. I kind of wish we could. It might be fun to be green, because it would be a certain amount of independence. We could just bask in the sunshine and, yep, that tasted good, that was nice. But as it is, we have to eat something to foster our energy, to get to grow and to move around. And so we should all be thanking photosynthetic creatures for doing the heavy lifting, for starting the process that then gets channeled into all the other living animals on Earth. You know, and I love the images that we've been looking at before this moment. The jellies that are out there. I thank one of my buddies, Michael All, for some of these images of creatures that most people have never seen and probably never will see, if but for the ability of some to go out there, down there, and take these amazing images. Imagine being able to create your own living light. 90% or so of the creatures in the sea do that. We're the odd ones. Fireflies, if you look at things, but are able to bioluminesce in terrestrial habitats, but it's pretty common out there in the ocean. And we are the odd ones in so many ways. Most of life on Earth lives in the ocean. We are terrestrial. We're in the minority. All of terrestrial things are in the minority in terms of the space we occupy and the diversity that we managed to develop over the ages. I mean, there are lots of cool insects and other creatures that are fellow citizens, if you will. Beautiful birds, mammals, and all the rest. But the ocean is where the greatest diversity actually is. And we're just beginning to get acquainted with the nature of these creatures. One thing I like about the book is being able to illustrate in a centerfold. It's my idea of a great centerfold. It has illustrations on both sides, 4 big sheets that describe the little guys that most people have never heard of. I mean, who has heard of spoon worms, or peanut worms, or arrow worms, or feather duster worms, all kinds of worms, but they're beautiful creatures. Or all of the variations on the theme of squid and jellies, the crustaceans, the rival insects in terms of their complexity. So, get out there, get down there, go swim around in all of the creatures who make our existence possible. In turn, they're gobbled up by somewhat larger creatures up the food chain, and here's the thing that climate scientists are beginning to appreciate and recognize. We're looking at blue carbon. We respect trees, flowers, and all the other creatures on the land that photosynthesize, capture carbon, generate oxygen, hold the carbon in place in the soil, and are critically important in terms of stabilizing, maintaining climate in a way that has worked for a very long period of time, now disrupted by our actions. But where is the carbon on the planet? Mostly in the ocean, mostly in the creatures of the sea, beyond phytoplankton, the zooplankton, and the big fish, that in turn are gobbled up by larger fish. That's the food chain in action. That's a nutrient cycle in action, because for every bite they take, they also put nutrients back in the ocean. It's called shark poop, or whale poop, or you name it. Everybody does it. In the ocean, it makes the ocean what it is. It's the chemistry of the ocean, the living system, that shapes this planet in a favorable way. So at the World Economic Forum in 2020, the world was the International Monetary Fund at the World Economic Forum that put a price tag on whales. I mean, the economists tend to follow the money, right? But here, the economists were following the carbon, and they put a price tag on the carbon in a whale. Actually, all whales together. How about a big T, $1 trillion of carbon value in the whales alive today? if you kill a whale, the carbon goes where? Boom, up into the atmosphere. As the carbon is turned into whatever it goes into, ultimately becomes either methane, carbon dioxide, when it is finally consumed. So, at the conference in Glasgow, some of you in the audience, I suspect, George, were you there? I think, yeah, he was. And I was really pleased to see, again, the living ocean, the living planet, really get front and center, nature-based solutions to our current climate crisis. The natural carbon capture, carbon storage systems that make our existence possible. We must do everything we can to reduce our emissions of methane and carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide, another warming gas, and to do all the other technical fixes that we're looking at. How do we bring down the carbon dioxide so that we have a planet that is less warm than it is going to be unless we take such actions? But if we don't take care of the natural systems, mostly ocean, we will not be able to see a future that is really livable for us. So, if it works, dollar-wise, to protect whales, why should it not be true of whale sharks? There's a lot of carbon there, too. And if we are going to protect big sharks, what about all those other sharks that are out there that we have tended to think of as something we should fear? You go to the ocean. I mean, I was told when I started diving, watch out, there are man-eaters out there. I don't have to worry about that, but the fact that I worry about sharks at all. And we know better now. I worry now when I go in the ocean and I don't see sharks. 90%, more or less, some species down to 1% of what was around when I started diving in the 1950s. What are we thinking? We haven't been thinking, we haven't known about the nature of the ocean. But that sharks really aren't out to get us. They really are indifferent to us as much. Plenty of other things they would prefer to eat if they could. But when we arrived on the scene, however long it was, we really began prospering by consuming nature. In fact, all creatures do. It's a give and take. You know, you saw the big fish eating the little fish eating the smaller fish, birds coming down, enjoying the tiny fish. But somehow, when we arrived, we didn't behave ourselves in the way that other creatures do. For one thing, you know, in nature, there is no waste. Everything gets recycled and recycled again. I think we're the only ones to generate trash. I don't know what it is. We think we're so smart. But where else in the world is there a creature that uses stuff and then throws it away and creates problems in the process of doing what we do? In the end, other creatures jump on our trash and they do degrade it eventually. But one thing that we've created that we really have begun to use in ways that it seems we can't live without it. Synthetic materials, plastics, they're great. They really become a part of 21st century living. But they weren't there in the 18th century and not in the 19th century. Only by the middle of the 20th century did plastics, these synthetic materials exist at all. But when they began to be created, it was a transformative kind of development. That these things do not degrade, they stay around. So nets that were made of synthetic materials deployed in the 1960s, they're still out there in the ocean. And they're clogging the ocean, continuing to catch and kill ocean wildlife, even though they never come to market. Some creatures are adapting to the plastic, like this albatross. Nice nesting material. They also pick up plastic and feed to their babies, but that's not a very good idea since you can't digest the plastic and often the young ones simply die or get so much junk in their bellies that there's no room for food and they starve. So here we are, having generated something that has and does serve us well. I mean, this is plastic. This is plastic. I suspect I have plastic laces on my shoes. Plastic. But it's not bad in its own right, but it's what we do with it when we're through with it. We're beginning now to think about the way nature works. There is no real end point. There's continuous cycling of materials. We can do a lot better by looking at how nature works and try to realize we're a part of this. We're not apart from it. We are really causing problems by our actions, putting into the ocean, putting into the atmosphere, putting into the land new materials that don't exist in nature, but now are a part of all of the living world, ourselves included. The plastics that degrade to micro and then nanoplastics are in the air we breathe, in the water we drink, probably in the wine too, dare I say. We can't escape. The other big problem is what we're taking out of the ocean on a mega scale. Again, whales can eat a lot, but they never take everything. They don't cause other species to go extinct, and they give back. They give back to the system that maintains an ongoing cycle of life. That's not our habit. Maybe we did once upon a time, but now with close to 8 billion of us living in cities largely, we've kind of lost touch with how the world functions. It's really exciting that the ecotarium is an example of leading the way, of getting back to understanding how we fit in. It is a little discouraging to go to Monterey and see the squid boats out there doing their best to take every last one and taking away the organisms that pelicans dine upon. The sharks eat them, the seals eat them, the keystone species, these little squids that we turn into calamari. But they're really much more important out there in the ocean. They too are carbon-based units, and when we haul them out of the ocean, we leave a hole. We break the connections that keep the planet safe. Maybe we can think of something else to eat other than squid and many of the other creatures that are critical to this cycling of life in the ocean. We're seeing the consequences. And I love the fact, finally, during climate discussions, nature, the ocean in particular, was a headline, is a headline, it will continue to be, that protecting the ocean, safeguarding life in the ocean means safeguarding ourselves. So, where do we go from here? Now that we know 21st century brilliance, we have got the information. We have the superpower of knowing. Polar bears might not survive this century because of loss of their home, the competition with us for food, but mainly the world is changing in ways that do not favor creatures that have developed along with us side by side over the ages, that now are experiencing hard times and they do not know what to do about it. Elephants, really smart animals, they don't know what to do about their changing world. I've met some pretty smart fish. They don't know what to do either. I mean, penguins are in serious trouble. You might not know that. But listen up. Do what you can to find out what's happening to the world and figure out what piece of the solution can you do to be a part of it. One thing is to get behind this whole new development here in San Francisco Bay. Be a part of the education, the science, the research, the conservation movement that really is seriously what we need to do to go and do what these creatures who are affected by our actions, they can't do it on their own. I think they probably would if they could. Even if they knew, they wouldn't have the power that we have to change the main problem. What is the main problem? Look in the mirror. We humans, largely not trying to harm the ocean, somehow thinking that the ocean was so vast, that nature was so resilient, that we could take what we wanted as much as we wanted, and life would go on. We might lose species, but who cares? Passenger pigeons are not darkening the sky anymore. We can still breathe. There's still fish in the markets. There's still birds in the sky. What difference would it make if we lose 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 species, as some are predicting we will, by the middle of this century? We have the capacity. We're so good at destroying, so good at consuming nature. This is our chance. Now, we could be the heroes for all who follow, for waking up and embracing the last wild places, the old-growth forests here in California, the old-growth deserts here in California, in your backyard, to do what you can to plant native trees, plant native flowers, because they connect to creatures, the insects, the pollinators, if you will, that need the native plants for their survival. And we need them all. We need all the little guys that make up this fabric of life that we've taken for granted and thought was infinite, but now we know. That's the key. Now, we know that around the world, about half of the coral reefs are either gone or are in serious decline, partly because of global warming. They lose their partner algae that live in the tissues of the animals, and either they are weakened or they die as a consequence of warming. But it's also, we take away their partners, the parrotfish. We take away the sharks. We take away the grouper. We eat them, or we use them as products. Squeeze the oil out of some of the creatures we take from the sea, when we could just grow the kinds of organisms that they eat. Fish don't make the omega oils that we love to squeeze out of them for our health. Not good for the fish's health, I'm sure, but we can do better. They have to eat those omega oils and get them through their diet. We can do the same thing and bypass the fish, bypass the krill, and actually do it on a much more efficient scale if we decide we really need those omega oils. Poor old parrotfish. Nobody ate them when I was a kid because they were thought to be not very tasty. But now the grouper are gone, the snapper are basically gone. The sharks, whatever it is, the tunas are in sharp decline. Bluefin tuna you can still find in the market or in restaurants. Bluefins, these amazing cheetahs of the sea, but they can't outrun us. In the Pacific, the latest population figures are about 3% since the 1970s. That's drastic. Imagine if since the 1970s, 97% of humankind had disappeared. I suppose we wake up and say, we gotta do something. Actually, here we are facing the sharp decline of many of our fellow citizens out there in the blue part of the planet, and we very complacently continue to eat them. The other tunas and swordfish and many other creatures that we find in our markets, they're only down by about 90%, not 97%. But here we are, still treating them as if they're something that can be replenished readily. So, where's the good news in all of this, aside from the fact that we know we've got problems, we also know we've got solutions. I love the fact that there are more whales today, here in California and around the world, than when I was a child. Why? Well, we basically stopped killing them in the 1980s. Some are still killed by some nations for food or products, and we kill them with discarded fishing nets, we kill them with too much noise in the ocean, we kill them by taking their food. But nonetheless, the deliberate killing has largely stopped, and they have begun to recover. Gray whales are one of the great success stories, but there's still problems. They're not out of harm's way yet because of these other means, the other dangers they face. Turtles, same thing, protected nests in the 21st century. Not so in times past. We simply used the eggs as something to eat, and we killed the turtles too. And now, more turtles, more caring, more understanding of who they are, rather than just what they are, and how their lives and ours tie together. I long for the day when, in addition to bird watchers all over the planet, with the many multi-billion-dollar industry about buying binoculars, going on trips, let's go find these gorgeous birds and count them and look at your life list, that we'll be doing the same thing for fish. I found an Azure grouper. How many did you see? How many? Where were they? I mean, we can do this with parrotfish. We can do it with rockfish here in California, especially if you have a submarine, because some of them are very deep. And about having a submarine, go deep and see these creatures that really are curious about us. One of the great projects that I talk about in the book is the Sustainable Seas Expeditions. It was a partnership with National Geographic, NOAA, and the San Francisco-based organization, the Goldman Foundation. And together over 5 years, getting kids in the ocean and teachers and scientists using little submersibles went around the coastline of the United States, tiptoed down to Mexico, and police went to Hawaii, wherever there was a national marine sanctuary. That's where we took our Sustainable Seas expeditions. And we're kind of recreating that now with Mission Blue, but taking on the whole world to not only go to places that already have some form of protection, but to identify places that can, with care, go from wherever they are to get to a better place. Some places like Palau are already in pretty good shape. But to think, San Francisco Bay is a hoop spot. It's not in perfect condition, but it could be in a whole lot better condition based on what we do or what we fail to do. Right now, we have a chance, a big chance. I love the idea of little submarines. And thank you, George, for celebrating. Where are you? The idea that perhaps the ecotarium will be featuring a little submarine or two, not just to be there as an exhibit, but to be used, to explore, to get to know the coastline of this part of the planet, and maybe to go more widely. I just have to share this little clip with you. This is a biggish kind of submarine. It takes 3 people who can go down to 2,000 meters. There are about a dozen of these that have been created, and they've been around for a while. It's a Pisces sub that for a long time operated at the University of Hawaii. It was retired just last year, but before it retired, we were able to go out and use it to look at bioluminescent corals that I first got to see in 1979 using a little personal submersible called the gym suit. But I took my grandkids to see that what I saw. And they were in this little submarine. And we also took some kids from the inner city of Washington, D.C. who had never seen the ocean before, let alone go down a little submarine and be a witness to this amazing phenomenon of living light. Probably not so easy to see with the light that we have on the screen, but guarantee it's a light show. So, I love submarines. You probably have figured that out. And I really look forward to a time when it will be as easy to get into a submarine as it is to get in, say, a car, or a helicopter, or a boat. We need to understand this living planet from the surface to the greatest depths, and it's happening on our watch. For the first time this year, more people have been to the deepest part of the ocean than have walked on the moon. Up until that time, you would say, you know, yeah, 1960, 2 people went down and they got to see the deepest part. 52 years later, James Cameron went down all by himself. Woohoo, that made 3 people. And then Victor Vescovo came along and commissioned the development of a submarine that he has taken by himself, but he's taken others along with him. And now the number is just over a dozen people, the number of people who have walked on the moon, who have been to the deepest part of the ocean, 7 miles down. Why is it so hard? It isn't. We've got the technology. What we need is the will to use our brilliant minds, get out there, get down there, and enjoy getting to understand that most of life on Earth lives in the dark all of the time. And it's cold, and it's beautiful, and it keeps us alive. So, this is reason for hope. There are 135 going on, however many we can add to the list. Hope spots, areas that people such as here in San Francisco have nominated, a place they know and love and are willing to commit to going from wherever they are to get to a better place and to connect with other places around the world, other communities, other champions, other scientists, other kids. We use the Esri technology, the GIS technology, with layers of data, and applied it with partnering with this California-based company, Esri, to characterize each of the hope spots, to be able to take people there, to dive in, to see who lives there, and to understand the problems, understand the solutions, and share their stories. It's true here in San Francisco Bay. There's some real problems with introduced species that have invaded the natural system, about how much we have removed from the world, how much we're putting into the ocean. But there are also some great natural areas that are still intact. And if you go to this model to see this whole Bay Area, how it all connects land and sea, and it's not just the surface. Look at the configuration. They call it bathymetry, the nature of the bottom of the ocean. Who lives there? I'm confident we'll make new discoveries as we use new technologies to explore the ocean, here as well as everywhere else. So how much of the ocean is protected? How much do we need to protect to safeguard our planet? Right now, there's a goal of having 30% of the land and sea in 10 years by 2030. 30 by 30 is the calling cry, the motto, if you will. Right now, it's only 3%. 3% of the ocean, 97% is open to fishing and dumping and taking, one way or the other. And yes, there are some constraints, but basically only a fraction of the ocean is proactively safeguarded, but it's getting better. And that was evident at the COP26 when 4 nations, Ecuador, Colombia, Costa Rica, and Panama, announced their agreement to safeguard migratory species in the waters off their coast. What a concept. It's really exciting. Imagine place in the ocean where tuna are safe, where sharks are safe. Imagine the ocean for the kids of today and the grandkids of tomorrow that will really have an ocean at least as good as the one we now know. It really is up to us, up to all of us. Everybody can do some piece of what it will take to go from wherever we are to get to a better place. The hope spots are a start, but protected areas, actions that not only governments are beginning to take, but that are looking at what it is going to really take. Individuals who have the will to take whatever they've got and put it to work to go from wherever we are right now to get to that better place. So thank you. Thank you all of you for coming. I'm glad to share the book with you. I'm glad it's done. It's during our COVID year that continues, but I really hope that you will find something in there to inspire you or to make you laugh or maybe even make you cry, but motivate you to go and see for yourself and do what you can to take care of the ocean. It takes care of us. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask? Sylvia? Okay, normally they're never this quiet. I don't know what's going on. Bailey, please stand. This is our beauty. She's actually one of the musicians here tonight from the Ivory Coast. Bailey.
This is truly an honor for me to be here and to be in your presence and to meet you personally. You're an amazing human being. Thank you so much for all you're doing for us. My question is, a lot of oil companies are going to Alaska and one of the icy areas to try to dig more oil. What would you do or say about that?
If I were the boss of the world, I'd say no. There are many things that if we use our collective voice. How's this? Yeah? Can be heard. Don't think that you don't have power. If we sit by and allow things to continue that we know are causing harm, and now we do know that the best chance we'll have of going from planetary decline and warming conditions that will be unfavorable to us, mean to keep the oil, the gas in the ground as much as possible, and not to go into new areas that haven't been exploited before. There is a transition time. We're in the middle of it, but it's going to happen faster than many believe is possible. I mean, the new ways of dealing with hydrogen, the new ways of capturing sunlight, the understanding that we have to do this, we have to change. It's the greatest gift that burning fossil fuels has given to us. Of course, it's given us food, it's given us better health, it's given us transportation, but most importantly, it's given us knowledge that we have to change. We have to do it quickly. So, whatever it is going to take, the voice of the people really does matter increasingly, especially now that the evidence is very clear that climate change is not a hoax. we're experiencing, we can do something with our laws, but we really have to obey the laws of nature.
Hi, Sylvia. Brian Baird. I brought with me my book that you signed for me in Boston in 1997. I should say that I've been on the California Global Ocean Conference in September of 1997. And reading this book and Dr. Stowe and so many other leaders, it's such an impact on me. So I say that. But I do have an interesting question for you. That, you know, my career was in government in California, trying to deal with ocean protection and all the things we do with management. You had a kind of a difficult time, I think, when you were chief scientist at NOAA, where you went from an advocate and lover of the ocean, and all the things you do, to suddenly being within government. And I'd just like to hear your comment on that, because I know from being in government my entire career how difficult it is, what kind of a line you have to walk. So I just wondered if you have any thoughts on that time in your life. I think you talked about it in the movie Mission to the Moon. So
I'm glad to have had a chance to be in a government position, to see the world from that perspective. But there's a reason they call me the Surgeon General. I'm making such a fuss about the fish. And, you know, we have this billion-dollar agency within NOAA called the National Marine Fisheries Service. It does a lot of good things, but it's their job to facilitate the finding and capture and marketing of ocean wildlife. When you think about the headlines of, maybe you know that, see them, about the concerns of the trade in wildlife, and mostly people are thinking about ivory and pangolins and polar bear skins, and they should. It's dreadful what we're doing to land wildlife on the land. But the biggest wildlife trade on the planet is what we call seafood. Wild animals used as something to eat, as products, and we subsidize it. We pay people to go out and kill wild animals to go to market. And people will consume wildlife for food, and especially in coastal communities and island countries, consuming fish and other wild animals from the sea will continue one way or another. And people will follow habits that have been acquired, but there is simply no justification for industrial scale, high seas fishing. This is especially in Antarctica, that is a place where we have fully protected the land from commercial exploitation. But the ocean has been left open, up for grabs in a way. We have an agency called CAMLR that is supposed to conserve the nature of life in the sea, but actually they've been carving it up and assigning how many tons, and we're talking tons of krill, and tons of the deep sea fish that have never been on anyone's menu until very recent times, when we could get to Antarctica, when we could take our technologies to apply them to find and capture the creatures who live there. Nobody needs to eat ice fish, Chilean sea bass, orange ruddy. It's a new habit, and we're very adaptable. We can eat almost anything, one way or the other, and we've acquired this taste for high sea tuna and swordfish, and a whole lot of other things that were not on my menu when I was a kid, because they just didn't exist, but now they do. And maybe we can change again and think of other things that are delicious, but don't harm the ocean. So we need to work with governments, whether it's working inside or as those who elect people to office, dare I say, that's part of the power that all of us have. Find those who are singing your song and give them support. And maybe even decide to jump in and work in the government yourself. Maybe not for a lifetime, but maybe you can. Who knows? It's good for some, not for others.
Well, we have a new generation of youth and young adults that are really passionate about the ocean. We're blessed here in the Bay Area to have like a hot spot for people that want to come back. And yet we all know that our voice is really important, but it feels like advertising and big business is in their own trajectory. And we don't have a way to unite our voices. What do you recommend for making changes, by, our voices, like you said, electing officials or talking to officials, but we do, and yet the legislation is defeated because of big business. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Well, one problem is that we have laws on our books that were made when the world was a different place. Really, that favor taking large quantities of life from the land and from the sea, that favor agriculture over the natural forests, that favor extraction from the ocean over protection for the ocean. This is reflected in the budget for the National Marine Sanctuary Program. It is doesn't reach $100 million. When I went to NOAA, it was at $3 million. By the time I left, it was $36 million. And after our Sustainable Seas expeditions that really put the spotlight on marine sanctuaries, it cut up to as much as $50 million. Fisheries is $1 billion. So your point is well taken. There are these forces backed by large money, resources, that are pushing society in a direction. And part of it is that we have these habits and beliefs that are really born at a time around a world that doesn't exist anymore. And what we've done to ocean wildlife and on the land as well. If you look at it and you understand it, and you let people in on it, don't keep the news to yourself. I mean, make your voice heard in your community, in your home. What are we doing? What are we thinking? Eating bluefin tuna when you know their numbers are so low. Every tuna counts. I mean, so you can make a difference on the individual level, saying, I want my tuna in the ocean. That's my choice. Or to find whatever ways, using whatever power you have, and it varies. Everybody has something different. To look at the problem and figure out how can you be a voice, and the ways, and people are doing this with films, with stories. That's what I've been trying to do with Lots of Help, with the Odyssey book, to let people see the world armed with knowledge. It's our most powerful, our greatest power, and using it to get to that better place. If I had a straight answer to your straight question, boy, I'd put it on billboards everywhere.
Thank you, Dr. Earle. Your presentation was extraordinary. I have loved the ocean for over 50 years, and I want to thank George Jacobs for bringing us together tonight and honoring the leader in ocean conservation. So I've been a diver for 25 years, and I had the experience this last weekend of diving in the Aquarium of the Bay as part of the volunteer diver program. And I had the experience of witnessing children in strollers captivated by a diver among the fish and the coral, and I saw their eyes of understand the possibility of being underwater with the fish. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the vision of the Bay Aquarium and what the future is for ocean conservation and how we can teach our children about the ocean in a way that the Aquarium of the Bay has been a leader in. And I also want to thank the organizers of today for making everything vegetarian. I'm a vegetarian myself. And I want to know what your view is of the vision of the Bay Aquarium and what the children in strollers of the future are going to experience.
I'm going to pass the microphone to the person who is best able to provide answers. George.
Thanks for your comments and thanks for being a volunteer diver at the aquarium. The aquarium is an amalgam of many things. At its core, it has a larger aquarium. So currently we have 750,000 gallons of salt water in our core tanks, and that will go up to about 2 million gallons in the new facility. We currently have 24,000 animals and 200 species, and that will go up to 30,000 animals and maybe 300 species. But the number of species reflects the biodiversity in the San Francisco Bay, and that lens offers a complex view of how interdependent we are with biodiversity in the oceans. So human health equals social health. And as Dr. Sylvia Earle always says, if there's no blue, there's no green. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Sylvia. I think we all really appreciate you. I know I do. My name is Pamela Jackson, and you have been my hero since I grew up. I started an organization with my husband called Everything Oceans, and what we do is we engage, educate, and empower the children to become ocean champions. And you are the reason why we started our company. So I also wrote a children's book, and in my children's book, it's an award-winning book, I talk about the bluefin tuna and how they're going extinct. And I just wanted to ask you, when we are trying to educate people about what ocean acidification is and how that creates climate change and how it affects the whole entire ocean ecosystem, I'd like to know how you explain that to people. Thank you.
Well, it's in the book. But just in shorthand, the excess carbon dioxide that we have lofted into the atmosphere has, against the predictions of many climate scientists, has not only been absorbed by the ocean, but so much of it has gone there that beyond the point where it can be taken up by life in the ocean and utilized, it becomes carbonic acid. And it has developed rapidly and continues to move in a direction that some equate with a problem perhaps as great as the warming of the planet. Changing the chemistry of the ocean essentially changes everything. Why? Because some creatures will say that have been in the minority, in the background, for long periods of time, just waiting for favorable circumstances. And along it comes, a more acid ocean is favorable to them, so they prosper, but those that are favorable to conditions that have persisted for many millions of years go into decline. We need a planet that's more or less the way it has been for literally millions of years, that have come to a point that's really favorable to us, especially in the past 10,000 years. It's really perverse on our part. Here's this wonderful planet that works in our favor. The air we breathe, the temperature is just right for the likes of us. And then it would seem as if we are compelled to do everything we can to unravel it, to take it, make it so that it's not working in our favor. And acidification of the ocean is one big piece of that. Warming the planet. You want to change the planet significantly, change the temperature, either make it hotter or colder, everything changes. Change the chemistry of the ocean, of the water, everything changes. We're just beginning to see the effect on things such as oysters and little organisms in the sea that have a calcium carbonate shell, liney shell. And certainly that's oysters and other mollusks, but even coral reefs are beginning to have less firm structure than they did. And we're talking decades, we're not talking thousands or millions of years. We're actually bringing about geological scale change in the span of a single human lifetime. You know, here I am, I'm a witness. So are you. And what can we do to shift in a geologically, of that magnitude, to get back to a better place? Well, that's our job. But we couldn't if we didn't know that the problem exists. The best thing that we can do in a stroke to cover a multitude of these issues is identify the critically important places that are still in good shape. Whether it's a kelp forest, a coral reef, a seagrass meadow, a marsh, and treat this as if you're, like treasures. These are real treasures. These are systems that are still maintaining the integrity of the earth, and they can, to some extent at least, be recovered if we take action before we get to that point where nothing we do will change the trajectory, the runaway heating of the planet, or the acidification of the ocean, so that it just becomes inhospitable for life as we know it. Bad news, good news. Mostly good news.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to have you here and to listen to you. I'm a huge fan of yours, and you just inspire me every time I hear you to just try a little harder and do the good work. Thank you so much. I'm about to tell you that. So, I would like to bring a new friend of mine up here right now. His name is Philip Keeling, and he actually just moved here 3 months ago from Florida to take this job as the Director of Institutional Advancement for the Bay Aquarium. So we're going to talk to you a little bit. Philip, come on up here.
Wow.
So, that could be very depressing, that could be very inspiring, right? Hopefully everybody's very inspired about what we heard. And it's not easy, right? It's not easy. It's not easy. All of this going on can feel so overwhelming. And, we understand that, I understand it. Probably the reason why I'm up here is because 14 years ago, I have a medical practice in the 457th Street building, and I wanted to do a LEED certified build out of this new suite. And so I went to the management and I said, so I'm going to need some TI. They're like, great, we'll do all the carpets and paints. And I'm like, great, because I'm doing a LEED certified build out. we were the 15th business in Northern California to become LEED certified. Nobody knew what it was. So I said to this big 450 center, so I'm gonna need this kind of paint and this kind of carpet, and they're like, no, we are not going to help you with that. You're gonna put this kind of paint and this kind of carpet. I said, I can't, because what is this leadership in energy and environmental design? I'm like, that's important for the future. And I'm like, Margaret, silly girl, all of this money you're gonna spend, all this extra time, extra money you're gonna spend, you're not even gonna realize the benefit of it until we tear down your suite and dispose of it, and then it can be, decomposed properly. And I said, exactly. I don't care if I'm 100 or if I'm not even here. I feel responsible to draw a line somewhere in the sand and move forward responsibly. And this is all that I could do. So they weren't going to help me at all. So my PR team just happened to know Jennifer Newsom. They went to her, and a couple weeks later, I go back up to the management office with this guy on his way to the Giants game, his baseball game.
Go Giants!
Go Giants! And they look at me and they're like, oh, here's this annoying person again with her environmental and stuff. And I said, I just wanted you to meet somebody who really supports what we're doing, and they support what you're doing, which they didn't recycle then, they didn't do anything then. And he's, really proud of this work, and they're looking at me like, you dumb girl, we are not going to help you. Who's this guy? I said, well, this is our mayor, Gavin Newsom. And he is so proud of what we are trying to do that actually next week, he is going to come to an open house we're having. The Chronicle is going to be, and we want to invite you to be a part of it. And he wanted to meet you and thank you personally for this. And they're like, we are on board with what she's doing. And that's, so sometimes you've got to try a little bit harder. So I want to introduce Philip, and he's going to give you some solutions as to what we can do.
All right, so thank you so much. And wow, how do you follow Dr. Sylvia Earle? Can we give her one more round of applause? So as Margaret mentioned, I moved here 3 months ago, and I'm the Director of Institutional Advancement here at the Bay Aquarium, and thank you all for coming out tonight. And I just want to see by a raising hands, how many of you on the way in our busy lives, how many of you stop in the mornings for a cup of coffee? Raise a hand. I know I do every morning. I cannot function and go to my first meeting without my triple shot of espresso. All right, so cup of coffee. It's like $5 a morning, right? $5. So at the Bay Aquarium, we use 42,000 pounds of food per month, or per year, right? So that breaks down to $181 per day to feed all of the animals that are at the Bay Aquarium. So if you're like me and you're a caffeine junkie, you're gonna spend about $175 a month on coffee. If you would give up a month and make coffee at home, you could feed all of the animals at the aquarium of the bay for a day. So, I'm going to give up coffee for the month of December, and I'm going to donate my $175 to the Bay Aquarium. Would anyone like to join me? All right. So if you'd like to join me, you can visit theaquariumofthebay.org, or I have envelopes with me and make your donation, but you can feed all of the animals at the aquarium for the price of a cup of coffee. How amazing is that? So I joined the organization from Florida. I moved here 3 months ago, and I'm so excited, and I'm honored to be able to be at an event with Dr. Sylvia Earle and spend time with George Jacob, and we have some very exciting things coming down in the pipeline. I'd love to have you guys as my guests at the aquarium and come on a tour and learn more about us and how we can support each other and help grow together. So I'll be around if you have any questions afterwards, and thank you, Margaret, for the fabulous introduction.
So what are we going to do now, guys? I think we're going to take a
short break. There is the bar is open, and we have a lovely buffet. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back.
And maybe we can
If we're lucky.
talk to Sylvia, and then she has a table right here. Maybe you want to purchase a book, she'd love to sign it. And maybe you can pull Phil